Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm here with another weekly wrap-up. These are all the books that I read from the 22nd through the 28th of September. Honestly, it's not going to be that many this week because I had a huge one that I had to finally get through that took me a few days. So hopefully this will be a really quick wrap up and we can get on to the rest of the filming I need to do today because I have like 3 videos to plan here. So let's go ahead and dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, hopefully I'm not looking too gross right now, but it is hot in San Diego today. So I have the AC on, so I apologize if you can hear it in the background, but I'm hot. So anyways, this week I don't have too many books to talk about. It was still a really great week for me because I did only read 6 books this week. But one of them was a biggie and it took me a while to get through, and I'm so excited that I finally read it. I'm probably going to have that book on my thumbnail, so you probably already know which one I'm talking about. But I did have 6 books, and then I did have 1 DNF, so I'll briefly talk about that one. But anyways, it was another great week this September. You know, I've been busting through a lot of these reads. I'm really proud of myself. I'm having so much fun with the readathon, so I think that's really helped me keep on reading. So I'm not too disappointed with this week's count. And it was definitely a good week, except for my DNF. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive right in because like I said before, I got multiple videos to plan today or film today, so I don't want my voice to go because that sometimes happens for me. Okay, so the first one that I read was an ALC, and this is By a Boyfriend by Everly Ashton. This is my first book by them. This is the first book in the Abbott Brothers series. And I requested the ALC, so I was excited to get that. This was kind of cute. It didn't blow me away or anything, but it was super short, very quick. I listened to it in one sitting. And this is between Travis and Isla, and it's kind of like a bachelor auction that goes on, and it happens at the senior citizen home, which I thought was really cute. And it's these 2 grandparents that the grandmothers kind of set this up because Travis is put in this auction. He doesn't really know what to expect by his grandma, and Isla's grandma ends up bidding on him, but for her. So they get to go on a date and everything, and so they end up going bowling and just really hitting it off. And they're like actually wanting to take it back to his place already, which I'm like, whoa, that's fast, you know, with your 1 date. But I don't have to judge because I've been there, you know. So they go back to his place. Things are getting hot and heavy. She goes to the bathroom and then like basically bounces. Doesn't have an explanation, just leaves. And Travis kind of has a miscommunication that I think is just so stupid in this book. But Travis thinks that she left because she found like she had just asked about his previous sexual partners and like he didn't have that much, and so he thought that's why she left and didn't want to have sex with him. But that was it. So she never contacted him again. And he was about to go on a vacation. So he's away for a couple weeks. He comes back and she's actually the new office administrator of his work that he owns with his brothers. And so then he's like pretty uncomfortable. They're kind of, you know, embarrassed. They don't want people to know that like almost hooked up. He doesn't know how he's going to be able to work with her. And so when this opportunity for like expansion in another city jumps up, he like basically offers to be the guy to go do that. So he's gone for like about 9 months. And when he comes back to return back to their office, she has a boyfriend now and everything like that. So they have like a connection, they have chemistry, and they are interested in each other, but she has this kind of douchey boyfriend. I don't even know what the point of him being in the picture was, but she wasn't into him. She hadn't even had sex with him, and they were dating for a couple months, which I just thought was, why would you even bother? But you were willing to have sex with that guy on your first date. So I don't know. She just seemed like because she was kind of using him. But she ends up like not being able to fight her attraction to him and kind of ending things with her boyfriend. And literally the second things end with her boyfriend, they freaking get it on. And then you find out the reason she bounced, and like it just was frustrating because it was such a stupid thing, and it was like about her starting her period, and like why wouldn't you, and she has issues because people made fun of her when she was a kid about her period. I'm like, you can't, you're not a grown enough woman to be able to tell a guy like, hey, you know what, sorry, I just started my period. I mean, she was gonna give him a blowjob, so I'm like, why don't you just continue, let him know what's going on? I'm sure the guy would not mind. Anyways, I just thought that was very flimsy, but now they're together, and he had this bad relationship in the past, and she totally broke his heart, and so he had never really wanted to date again, but now he's open to it, and they have some really really cute moments together and kind of dating or whatever, and so I liked that. But then they run into the ex-girlfriend, and that starts third act drama, and like the third act drama never really gets resolved in my opinion, because like somebody's life is in danger. It's kind of like this weird thing that's thrown at the end, and that makes them just realize they shouldn't have those issues, and then all of a sudden it was like epilogue, and I'm like, what? Like they didn't even talk about the third act conflict at all. So that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. I thought it was wrapped up way too quickly. There was lots of holes in this. I did see other reviews too where people were like, this had mistakes where it was like, she said she didn't have any family and she's alone, yet she had her grandma that she was supposedly really close to at the beginning. So there was just some stuff that didn't make sense. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I think they could have resolved things better and kind of not have it wrap up so quickly at the end. And this was narrated, it was duet narration, which I really love. And this was by Lee Samuels and Vanessa Edwin. Honestly, the audiobook was really well done. The duet narration was great. I enjoyed that. I just thought there was, the writing, there was a lot of missed opportunity there. Okay, so I was debating on whether to go over this one a lot because this was our buddy read. The next one is Green Light by Jescie Hall. This was our buddy read for October. Unfortunately, we just announced this, which you would have seen by now by the time I post this, but due to the hurricane and the bad weathers on the East Coast, Jen couldn't, she didn't have power. They were like, if things were not going great, where she's at. So we kind of had to delay that. But we couldn't do it because everybody's busy schedules till like October 13th. So we just decided to delay it, do our live show on October 13th, and then we're going to push back what our October buddy read was going to be to November, which will be on my channel. So I was debating on whether going into all my issues with this here, because I do want you guys to watch the live show. So I'll briefly go over it, and then make sure you watch that live show on Bookmark by Jen's channel, and that's going to be October 13th. So anyways, Green Light. Jescie Hall, I've only read one other book by her, and that was That Sick Love. And she really writes a dark, extremely spicy kind of book. At least that's what I could see from her reviews and only reading that one book, obviously. I know Jen really loves her, so we picked out this book. It was one of her new releases, and it didn't fully work for me. It was kind of tough in a lot of spots. And it is long. Like, I think it was like 565 pages. And I managed though, and this is why I didn't totally rate it badly. I managed to finish that like within like a day and a half. So it sucked me into the point where I was able to read it super quickly. Her writing is well done. She's able to kind of suck you into the world and it interests you. There was just some stuff that didn't work for me. So this is basically marketed kind of as like a stepbrother, taboo, cam girl, smutty, spicy, bully kind of book. And it had all those things, but this is one of my complaints is it's not really, I don't really buy into the marketing something as step sibling, step brother romance if they didn't grow up together or like live in the same home as stepbrother, stepsisters. If you're grown-ups and you're living outside of the house and your parents happen to get married, like I don't really buy into that as like stepbrother, stepsister, because it doesn't really matter. The reason that's taboo is if you guys were stepbrother, stepsister growing up as a family together. That's the kind of taboo that I want. Not just, oh, I'm going to throw this stepbrother in there to make it even more spicy. So that kind of bugged me. But anyways, I haven't even gotten to what the setup is. Basically, I'm just going to briefly say it because I'm already talking too much. So this is between Shane and Montana, and Montana was a cam girl. She did it at like 15 years old. She did it for, I think, a couple years. I can't remember how long, but she grew up with a drug addict mother, and she was kind of doing it to help supply drugs to her mom and keep them secure because her mom was a total mess. There is, SA mentioned in this because she did get raped by her mother's like drug dealer guy and all that kind of stuff. And now she hasn't been doing that. She's about to go to the school. She's trying to become this like cello, whatever, on like their orchestra and all that kind of stuff. And she's somehow managed to become one of the best within 2 years of just picking it up and doing it, which I find unbelievable. But anyways, she's trying to get on that chair on that art orchestra thing. Her place kind of gets, she doesn't have a place to go. Her dad just married this woman. Her mother is like in prison, but like like drug hospital. I don't remember. So he basically tells her she has to live with her stepbrother. And when she shows up, right before she showed up to that, she went to this porn audition because she needed to make money. And so she went to an audition and she had to have sex on camera with this guy that was supposed to be the talent guy. And when she shows up to her stepbrother's place, it's actually was her stepbrother. And he had set that up to fuck her over, have her on camera, blackmail her with the footage that he has, and all of this. So this is a big bully dark romance because Shane fucking hates her with everything in his being. She has no idea why he hates her. He bullies her very badly. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens in this that is dark. But the thing is, I didn't really like the heroine, so I didn't really care as much. Like I felt like I think Jescie Hall was trying to write like this badass woman that's okay with her sexuality, but she came off like a bitch that used men and used her body to get things, and she was perfectly fine with that. And I didn't really have a lot of empathy for her because when you find out why he hates her, it's understandable. And she did totally, manipulate a young kid, like although she was a kid herself when she was a cam girl. So I'm being vague because I don't want to give things away, but just know this is like very, a lot of sex, a lot of triggers. The biggest trigger I want to mention right away, because I didn't know this was going to happen in this book, because I go in blind a lot of times, but there is like animal brutality, animal like abuse. It's so bad on page that it shocked me. But obviously, I'm not bringing up all the triggers because this is Jescie Hall. There's going to be lots of triggers, but I didn't fully buy into these characters. I didn't care about them that much. I do have to say that I loved the roommates that he has that would kind of get it on with each other. And I love a little man-on-man, MM romance. So, I don't know. I don't want to go too much into it. Watch that live show so you can see much more of my thoughts. But I decided to give this like a 3.5 because I still was sucked in. There is a murder mystery. You're trying to find out who killed this girl. There's a whole plan of the reason Montana's doing what she's doing, and kind of like figuring out what happened in their history. So it did capture my attention. The first half was really slow, but once the other half kind of picked up, it really amped up. And so I got through it pretty quickly, considering how long it was. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and it is 5 chilies. This has a lot of spice in it. So there was extreme animal cruelty, essay, abuse, attempted essay. Some kink stuff in here was breath play, butt stuff, kind of snowballing, kind of spitting, and then some really weird pet play that really isn't for me. So, but if you love that, no shame, you might like this. So it was okay, but it wasn't really great, and there was a lot of missing stuff. So I will go into that more on that live show, so make sure you tune into that. Okay, so then I listened to The Coven by Harper L. Woods. This is, I listened to this on AnyPlay, and this is the first book in the Coven of Bones series. And I think this had a lot of great world building and a lot of good promise. It just didn't fully hit for me, because this is about Alaric Gray and Willow. And this is like a witches with some like really interesting, creepy kind of vibes. Like this coven, like they're like the older first witches. They're like all bones, but they like live. They don't die. And so like they're the head of this coven. And they actually, like, one of the first witches had created these vessels that are almost like vampires, but they're like a demon in a human form. And so they have to feed off the witches to live. And so I think they were kind of allies in the beginning, but there's been this like hate between the witches and the vessels. Like they don't want these vessels around anymore, but they're stuck with them. And you have Willow, and she actually has been living in hiding, kind of grew up outside of this coven. Her mom had like faked her death and went on the run and raised her as a witch, taught her everything as a witch, but kind of kept her secret. And Willow has her own kind of goal and revenge plan against this coven. She needs to protect her brother, and her dad's line and whatever is a little different than what you were thinking. So she's a little special, she's interesting, and she has to get her aunt's bones that were like, so that she could come into full power or something like that. And so Gray comes, and once they realize who she is, to take her to that school, and there's somebody or something killing killing the witches there, and we don't know what's going on. And then they have like enemies to lovers kind of, situation going on here. The thing with this, I think it had a lot of promise, but I didn't feel the romance. Like they hated each other. And then, like, he got her blood and she had his blood or whatever. And so, like, he could, like, kind of manipulate her or whatever, glamour type of thing. And so it was very almost non-con, like, kind of thing. Because it's, like, she couldn't control, like, the sexual interest. And they seemed like lust stuff about the sex. And then, like, he's like, I know you, it's like, then they were saying, I love you, or he was asking her to tell him she loved him. And I was like, what? And this guy has had this plan for his own nefarious reasons, why he needs Willow. And so everything that he did is like a huge betrayal. So that wasn't very great romance, but I guess I know there's a second part. This ends on a cliffhanger, and who he is and what's revealed and all the stuff happens right at the end. So I'm probably still going to pick up the second one just to see what happens and see if it gets better. So I ended up giving that one 3.5 stars and 2.5 chilies. Okay, so on to the big one that I read this week. I finally did it, you guys. I read Manacled by SenLinYu. This is fanfic. If you're not aware, it's one of the most highly hyped and beloved fanfics. I've seen everybody on BookTube and Bookstagram talk about this book for a couple years now, and I still hadn't read it because I was intimidated by the size of it and didn't think I would stay hooked that long into it. But I gotta tell you guys, this is definitely worth the hype. I loved this. It was so dark, so depressing, but very like emotional and like very intimate. Like it's a very slow burn too, and I just think it's like 1,300 pages, so you really are spending so much time with these characters and seeing all this horrible heartbreak and like loss that they have to go through. And it just really builds and builds, where there's so much character development, so much growth. And if you don't know what it is a Hermione fanfic. So this is Draco and Hermione, but like Handmaid's Tale type of thing. This is set, I believe, after like the 5th year. If like basically Voldemort won, all your favorite people are dead. Harry, Ron, all like Neville, all these people, they're gone, and Voldemort has won. And Hermione has been in this prison, kind of in this like sensory deprivation type of thing for a couple years, where she's in complete darkness. She couldn't even talk. Umbridge was like basically torturing her for her fun. And so when they find her, like somebody else, one of the healers finds her and realizes what's being like they're pissed because they're like, you're supposed to keep her intact for Voldemort. And they have this kind of plan going on right now. This healer like person is in charge of it because he's doing this repopulation thing where a lot of, even though they were all about pure blood or whatever, they weren't having babies. So now they have this whole thing where they're forcing these witches to be kind of like Handmaid's Tale, to be the breeding, be the person that they can have sex with. And then that way they're helping repopulate and have more magical creatures. So Hermione ends up being a good option for this, and so they end up giving her to Draco. And Draco is the High Reeve. He's basically one of Voldemort's right-hand mans. He's responsible for a lot of the people's deaths. He uses the killing curse like an insane amount of times, and he's married, and she is basically forced to be his chick. And so there is SA on this because she doesn't want this. She's got manacles that force it so that she can't use powers. And she's basically thrown in there for him to assault her so that she can get pregnant. And another thing is that she has all these missing memories from being in the prison and tortured like that. And she had shut off, like blocked a lot of her memories. So they can't even get, when they go into her head, they can't get those memories. So if she has this magical pregnancy, it might be easier to get her memories so that Voldemort can look into it to make sure that nobody from the Order is still alive, and that he can figure out what she's hiding. So that's kind of the main gist. The thing is that this book is like pretty long, so it's told in like basically 3 parts. Like the first part is kind of her, you know, getting out of this prison and going to live with Draco and all the horrible things she has to go through with that. And then we get to the flashback part, and we get to go back to the war and see what happened. And that's when you learn who Draco was and how he was kind of, you know, willing to work with them as a spy. And him and Hermione build this like relationship because they are really collaborating and working together. So I don't want to go too deep into it because I am going to be having a vlog. I don't know when it's going to go up because I have a lot of stuff to do, but I decided to vlog it randomly. But I really, really enjoyed this. I loved the romance. Yeah, it does have a lot of dark stuff that's in a lot of triggering content, and it's very sad to see some of your favorite characters, you know, die and they're not there anymore and Voldemort is in power. So it definitely is a darker read, but I ended up giving this one 6 stars because it was fantastic, and about 2.5 chilies. So I definitely would recommend it. If you've been a holdout like I was, get on it, read it. It is fantastic. Okay, so then I had my DNF. And just real quickly, I tried to read The Company of Fiends by Kathryn Moon, and I just couldn't do it. I was struggling for over a day, and I was only like 30% into it. I wanted to read this because it's why choose, you know, monster gothic, and it'd be perfect for the readathon, but I just couldn't handle it. The first one I thought was okay. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but it was just like sex every chapter with like no emotional connection, and I didn't really care, and I thought it was just smut. And basically that's what this is, but it's not, like there's nothing happening. It was so boring. I mean, there's sex in like every like chapter, and the sex gets boring to me when you're just throwing all this stuff at me. And like she's, you know, it's kind of set in the theater where she's screwing the different monsters in the theater, so she really like doesn't have emotional connections with anybody that she's screwing. She's just screwing for the theater. So I had no interest. Some kind of murder mystery is happening. It was just boring me. Ugh. And I just knew I wasn't gonna like it, so I DNF'd it at 30%. Okay, so the last book that I read was actually one of my 12 Recs from 12 Friends. I read Nightshade by Keri Lake, and I thought this was the perfect time to read this one because this is a gothic romance, and that's, you know, part of the extra points for the readathon, so I was like, perfect. This is actually recommended to me from Beck's Reads, and I'm thankful so much to you, Becky, because I fucking loved this book. I didn't know what to expect. I went in completely blind, and then afterwards when I was looking at reviews, nobody gives you any details. It's very vague because it's basically really good to go in blind to this. But I gotta tell you, I've never read Keri Lake, and I'm a fan now. This is actually the first part in a duology, so now I need to get the second one, but it was very good. The world building, this kind of very fantasy but also paranormal type of feeling. There was so much in the world building of this, so I have to be really vague when I explain this because it's really complicated. I always listen to this on audiobook. I ended up buying it, but I also was highlighting on my Kindle because there's just so much to it. But basically Nightshade is about, it has Farron as our heroine, and she is living in Chicago, and her father had died. He had supposedly killed himself, even though they saw him jump off a building but never found his body. So you tell me if that sounds suspicious. But he was obsessed with this thing called Nightshade, and then this religious group called the Pentacrux. And he had like these symbols that he like could read this language, and he was obsessed with the symbols. And that symbol is actually like a birthmark on her. And she also had remembered kind of like this figure from her past always watching her. So there's a lot of mysterious things happening. And her this detective comes to her, and basically like there's been a murder with like this symbol left there, and so she actually goes through her dad's stuff and realizes she needs to look into this Nightshade, and Nightshade is actually like this world. It's kind of like a purgatory where people go when they die if they don't believe in heaven or hell or God or the devil, and so they're kind of stuck in this purgatory, but they don't really know that they're dead, and they live like regular lives, and basically that's where they are. And so she manages to get away when she speaks to this other creature that I think was like a demon, basically, to find a way to get to Nightshade because she wants to try and find her father. She thinks her father went there on purpose because they never found his body. And so she goes to Nightshade, and she ends up running into a woman and going to this man Jericho's house, and he is known as Death, and he's very scared, like people are scared of him there, but she goes to his place and ends up kind of like working there and gets to know Jericho. So now she's just trying to find her father, and she's this grumpy, broody, mysterious man, and he doesn't want her there. But the thing with this book too is it's told in like different times. So we have the past of like hundreds of years ago. I don't know how long ago it was, but that is about, I think it's Lustina and the Baron. And so we're learning about them and their romance, and then also tied into the future. So spoiler, I'm going to bring up a spoiler here just in case, but basically this is like a love that transcends time and space and all of that, and maybe it's reincarnation because basically the Baron is Jericho and she is Lustina, and he's been waiting for her to come back. And so it's just, I don't know, the dual timelines too were like done so well. I usually don't like the when that happens when you're reading about another storyline from the past, but I think it was just so well done. Like it flowed perfectly. Even with my audiobook, it was just seamless. And the narration was fantastic in this audiobook. I think if you are interested, you should definitely pick it up. This is a longer book. It's like over 600 something pages. And I think the second one is like almost that long too. So it's definitely a long book, but I honestly listened to this, I think in like a day. well, I cleaned the house, so I was doing it all day while I was cleaning the house. So it might have been 2 days mixed up, but it was fantastic. It was such a great audiobook. I thought this was one of the best gothic romances I've ever read. It's a world of like demons, angels, like where it's like half angel, half demon type of thing. The angels aren't exactly the good guys, or it's just very interesting. There's creatures in this Nightshade that are dangerous. There's a lot going on. So I think Keri Lake's writing was just so beautiful, and I was so emotionally invested in these characters. And so I think she just tied the past and the present like seamlessly. So this was fantastic. I didn't know if I wanted to give it 6 stars, but with how complicated it was and all that stuff going on, I ended up just giving it 5 stars, but still, like, it's almost at that level. I am gonna see how I feel about the second one. Maybe it'll be upped to a 6 star. I don't know, but I just loved it. So I'm very interested in Keri Lake now, and I definitely need to read more of her books. So, and then I think I gave that like 3 chilies. So those are the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment, and like the video. I'll see you guys on the next one.